7th grade, in this video we'll go over the problems on the 6.1 quiz. Number 1 says translate the verbal phrase into an algebraic expression and then evaluate the expression when the variable is equal to 12. So here's the algebraic expression, here's the verbal phrase. Number 1, 3 less than 3/4 of b. 3 less than 3/4 of b. So I know because it says 3 less than that I'm going to subtract 3 from something. Okay, so what do I subtract 3 from? Well, 3 less than what? 3 less than 3/4 of b. Okay, so 3/4, that's a fraction that looks like this, 3/4. The word of, this means multiply, multiply. In mathematical language, of means multiply. So if I want 3/4 of b, I need 3/4 times b, which I can just write as 3/4 b. If you write a b next to 3/4, you read this as 3/4 times b, or you could say 3/4 of b. So if I want 3 less than that, I need this minus 3. 3/4 b minus 3 would be 3 less than 3/4 of b. Now, once you write that algebraic expression, then you are asked, number 1, to evaluate. This word right here, evaluate, means find the value of. So your answer should be some number. You need to evaluate when b is equal to 12. And so we need to plug b into this expression and find the value of it when it's 12. There are 3 steps to evaluate. Number 1, you set it up. Number 2, plug in. And number 3, evaluate. And you evaluate by following the order of operations. We talked about this in class. Number 1, set it up. That means you're going to copy that same expression, 3/4 b minus 3. I'll copy that same exact expression, except anytime I see a b, I'm going to put parentheses instead. So here, I'm just going to copy what that says. I'll use a different color. 3/4, there's a b, so I'm going to put parentheses instead. Then I have minus 3, so I put minus 3. Okay, all I did was copy that expression, except in place of the b, I now have parentheses. That's step 1, set it up. Step 2 is plug in. Plug in. You need to plug in what that variable is equal to. B is equal to 12, so where b was, right there, I'm going to put a 12. Okay? Now, step 3, evaluate. I need to follow order of operations. Here I have 3/4 times 12, and then I have minus 3. So I have multiplication and I have subtraction. Which one should I do first according to the order of operations? Well, the order of operations tells me I must multiply before I can subtract. So I have to multiply 3/4 times 12. Now here I'm multiplying fractions. I could write 12 as a fraction, right? I could write 12 as 12 over 1. 12 over 1 is still 12. So here, when I multiply fractions, we've talked about this in previous chapters, you can either multiply the top numbers and multiply the bottom numbers to get your fraction. If you do that, 3 times 12 will be 36, and you have 36 over 4 times 1. So 36 over 4 would be 9. Or you could cross simplify. I can say here I have a 12 on top and a 4 on bottom. 12 over 4 is equal to 3. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So I can cross this out and make it a 3. Cross that out and make it a 1. So now when I multiply those, I have 3 times 3, which is 9, and 1 times 1, which is on bottom, which is just 1. So 9 over 1 is just 9. So 3/4 times 12 is 9, and then I have minus 3. 9 minus 3 is 6. So 6 is my answer. 6 is the value of this expression when b is 12. Number 2. Number 2, you're supposed to factor. You're supposed to factor that expression. It says 22k plus 33. Now, when you factor this, remember factoring is like taking things apart. We need to pull out what 22k and 33 have in common. So we could say the greatest common factor. The greatest factor that both 22 and 33 have in common. Well, that greatest factor is 11. Because 11 can go into 22 and to 33. Okay? So if I pull 11 out, then I need to think about 11 times what will give me 22? 11 times what will give me 22? That number would be 2. And then I have to have a variable k, right? Because when I multiply this number 11 times 2k, I need to end up with that. 11 times 2k would be 22k. Now I think about 11 times what? 11 times what would give me 33? Well, that's 3. And since that's a positive 3, I'm going to put plus 3. Okay? So this would be factoring. I'm pulling out the 11. That's what 22 and 33 have in common. And when I pull that out, what I'm left with is 2k plus 3. So now if I were to distribute this, 11 times 2k would be 22k. 11 times 3 would be 33. Okay? That's number 2. 11 times 2k plus 3. Number 3, we have another verbal sentence, and we're supposed to write this as an algebraic expression and then evaluate it when x is negative 5 and y is negative 3. So number 3 says the product of 9 and x plus the quotient of 27 and y. So this first part, the product of 9 and x, what does that look like? Well, product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So if I want the product of 9 and x, I'm going to write 9 times x, or 9x. That's the product of 9 and x. Plus, so I'll put a plus sign, plus the quotient. What does the quotient mean? Well, the quotient is an answer to a division problem. So if I want the quotient of 27 and y, I want 27 divided by y. 27 over y. 27 divided by y. So this is my algebraic expression to represent that verbal sentence. Now I need to plug in what x and y are equal to. I need to evaluate. Again, evaluate means find the value of. So again, I'm going to follow these 3 steps. I'm going to set it up, I'm going to plug in, and then I'll evaluate by following order of operations. Okay? So I'm going to copy this expression. Every time I see a variable, I'm going to put parentheses instead. So I have 9x, so I'm going to put parentheses, plus 27 over, I have a y there, so I'm going to put parentheses instead. Okay? That's set it up. That's step 1. I set it up by using parentheses wherever the variable is at. Step 2, I'm going to plug in. Plug in what those variables are equal to. Well, x is right here. X is negative 5, so I'm going to plug in negative 5. And here is a y. I'm going to plug in negative 3 for y. Okay, now I'm going to step 3, evaluate by following order of operations. 9 times negative 5. I have a positive 9 times a negative 5. A positive times a negative gives me a negative. And 9 times 5 is 45. Okay, so 9 times negative 5 would be negative 45. Then here I have 27 divided by negative 3. If you have a positive divided by a negative, you're going to get a negative answer. So I put a minus sign. 27 divided by 3 is 9. So 27 divided by negative 3 would be negative 9. Okay? Now here you could have negative 45 minus 9, or you can have negative 45 plus negative 9. It's the exact same thing. We talked about this way back in chapter 1. Adding a negative is the exact same thing as subtraction. So here I have negative 45 plus negative 9. I am adding 2 negative numbers. According to the song, that little rap song we listen to almost every single day at the beginning of class, in that song it says, same signs add. Same signs add. These have the same sign. Negative plus negative equals a negative. Same signs add, and we keep the sign. Same signs add, keep the sign. 45 plus 9 is 54. Okay, so negative 45 plus negative 9 is negative 54. That is the value of this expression when x is negative 5 and y is negative 3. Number 4, you have another factoring one. Similar to number 2. You're looking for the greatest common factor. What is a factor that can go into both 9 and 27? Well, 3 is a factor, but the greatest factor that can go into 9 and 27 is 9. That would be the greatest factor. So I'm going to multiply 9 times some expression. So 9 times what would give me 9x? Well, 9 times x would give me 9x. 9 times what would give me 27? Well, 9 times 3. 9 times positive 3. 9 times positive 3 would give me positive 27. So I can check to see, is this my answer? Is this correct? Well, if I distribute, I should get this. 9 times x is 9x. Good. 9 times 3 is 27. Good. So that works. This is the answer. 9 times x plus 3. Numbers 5 and 6. You need to simplify the expression. Simplify the expression. Number 5, I have 2 times negative 9x minus 7 plus 5x. I have a number 2 written right next to parentheses. That signals multiplication. I need to multiply. Now, I can't multiply. I need to multiply by distributing. Distributing. I distribute by showing the rainbow. I got to show how I multiply that number times both of the terms inside the parentheses. So 2 times negative 9 and 2 times negative 7. That's the rainbow. That's multiplying that number times both those terms. So first I have 2 times negative 9. So I'll write 2 and I'll put negative 9x. Sorry, 2 times negative 9x. 2 times negative 9x. Then I have positive 2 times negative 7. I'm putting these numbers in parentheses to show multiplication. 2 times negative x. 2 times negative 7. Now, what do I do with this 5x? It's not inside the parentheses, and so therefore I do not distribute the 2 to it. Instead, I bring it down. I bring it down. Okay? Now, I need to go through, I need to multiply, because I have to multiply before I can add. 2 times negative 9x would be negative 18x. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14, so I put minus 14. Minus 14, that's a negative 14. And then I have plus 5x. Okay, now here I need to simplify this part of the expression by combining like terms. Like terms must have the same variable and the same exponent. Negative 18x and positive 5x are like terms. They have the same variable x and the same exponent 1. Now, as you can see, the exponent's not written because the exponent, when the exponent is 1, it's not written, but it's understood to be 1. So I have a negative 18x and a positive 5x. We said up here in number 3, same signs add, keep the sign. Well, the signs aren't the same. Negative 15 and positive 5, they're not the same. So what are we going to do? Same signs add, different signs subtract. Different signs subtract. So 18 minus 5 is 13. Once you subtract, you keep the sign of the big guy, or the guy with the greatest absolute value, the guy furthest away from 0. And that would be negative 18. And its sign is negative. So that's my sign on 13. Negative 18x plus 5x is negative 13x. And what am I left with? I'm left with that constant negative 14. So I add that on to my final expression. So negative 13x minus 14 is the correct answer. That's the simplified expression. Number 6, I have negative 3 minus 6 times negative 8w minus 2. You see how this negative 6 is written right next to the parentheses? That signals multiplication. You need to distribute. Not 6. It doesn't say plus 6. It says minus 6. So this number right here that you're distributing is a negative 6. You are multiplying negative 6 times that term and that term. And these terms are both negative. So if you multiply a negative by a negative and a negative by a negative, you're going to get some positives, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive. Now what do I do with this negative 3? Well, nothing yet. I just bring it down until after I distribute. So I show the rainbow to distribute. Negative 6 times negative 8w would be positive 48w. It's positive because I'm multiplying two negatives. It's 48 because 6 times 8 is 48. It's w because that has a w in it. So negative 6 times negative 8w, and then negative 6 times negative 2. Again, a negative times negative is a positive. 6 times 2 is 12. So that's what I'm left with right now. Now I need to simplify. Here I have a w term, but I have no other w terms. So 48w will be in my final expression because I cannot combine it with anything else. Then I have two constants to combine. I have negative 3 and positive 12. They are different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 12 minus 3 is 9, and positive 12 is the big guy, so I'm going to put plus 9. And that is my final answer, 48w plus 9.